Hello, my name is Marcel Horace, and I'd like to discuss transgender visibility with you guys. The reason I wanted to talk about this topic is because I'm a transgender male myself, and at some point in your career, it's more than likely that you will be working with another transgender individual. So I wanted to give you some pointers on how to be more inclusive in the workplace and some trans-inclusive company policies. I'd like to begin by discussing what transgender is. Transgender refers to people whose gender identity or self-expression does not conform to their assigned sex at birth. There are several different transgender identities. The first two most common are going to be female to male and male to female. Female to male are those who are identified as males, and male to female are people who are identified as females. There's also the less commonly known gender fluid and agender identified persons. I also want to discuss some of the conflicts between what we know from trans media versus some of the real life experiences that happen on a day-to-day basis. When you think of the media misrepresentation, we often think of Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black or Caitlyn Jenner. And there's a lot of varying differences between these two people who are commonly represented in the media versus people who have those experiences on a day-to-day basis. Some of the most prominent differences are that most average trans people experience a lack of resources and a lot of transphobia inside and outside of the workplace and in common public areas. They also experience what is called dysphoria, which is the feeling of not being in sync with the body. It can cause a lot of depression or stress. And this, as far as being in the workplace, this can cause a lack of performance in the work area. This is something that can affect people negatively in the workplace. And they also deal with a lot of insecurities that people don't understand or know about. And they also face a lot of social sacrifices, whether that's with family and friends or with coworkers and peers. Transition is made up of a diverse amount of changes between people. No two people's transition is the same. And a lot of what's covered in the social media exemplifies that most trans people go through surgeries or take hormones, but not everyone elects to have surgeries or hormones. And some people have differences in their social transitions versus their physical transitions. Just because someone chooses to socially transition and come out as transgender, that does not mean that they're going to elect to have surgeries or hormones. And if they choose not to go through these separate things during their transition, it doesn't invalidate the gender that they identify as. I wanted to include this picture because out of all of these men, one of these men is transgender. And it is very important to show inclusion and make sure that you're not a part of discrimination, because if you can't tell that one of these people is transgender, they shouldn't be treated any differently as if they were known to be transgender. The biggest issue is that there's not a lot of total representation for all of the gender identities. The biggest issue is that the media or the educational information only covers the meaning of transgender strictly on a male-to-female basis, with emphasis on the physical parts of transitioning. And it doesn't always cover the gender fluid aspect or the agender aspect. We usually only hear about male-to-female or female-to-male transgender people. So I wanted to talk about some workplace challenges that a lot of people face. The biggest one we know about is going to be the public restroom issues. The next one that fits hand in hand with that is locker room or fitting and changing room designation issues, because a lot of the time these areas are specifically designated by gender. A lot of people deal with issues of respect and discrimination in their workplace, and that can be respect and discrimination either coming from coworkers or customers and clients. And then there's also a huge lack of resources. Sometimes that lack of resources comes from company policy, or it comes from people not having the correct amount of education over these topics about the trans community. What a recent adjustment is that a lot of companies are improving their inclusion policies. In 2012, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission unanimously ruled that an employer who discriminates against an employee or applicant based on the person's gender identity is in violation of the prohibition on sex discrimination contained in Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So a lot of companies are improving their diversity and inclusion programs to include the LGBTQ community, and especially the trans community. And that'll include policies against sexual orientation and policies against discrimination of gender identity. Transgender inclusive bathroom policies are also being implemented, and companies are now implementing adjustment policies stating that people of trans identification can use any bathroom that they identify with. Or a lot of companies are also adding family restrooms or gender inclusive restrooms to their establishments. And that includes the same policies are going for fitting rooms and locker rooms. I work retail specifically, and where I work, they've degendered the fitting room areas, and people can go wherever they want and and use whatever they need. Some advantages of having that workplace inclusion is that it enhances cultural competence while providing a competitive workplace advantage. It can improve the ability to recruit and keep high drive and talented workers. So instead of discriminating and possibly missing out on talent by making people feel as if they're unwelcome in the workplace, it's very inclusive and encourages people, especially younger generations, to want to work for these companies that have these inclusion policies. It also attracts workers who value full inclusion as a business priority and like to be surrounded by diversity in their workplace. It creates a positive environment that can greatly impact teamwork, interpersonal awareness, and productivity. And this can all ultimately impact work proficiency. So here are some ways to respect transgender associates and peers if you do meet someone and share your workplace with someone who's identified as transgender. So you always want to respect their identity. This includes at all times, whether you're addressing this person face to face or you're discussing matters of this person to someone you work with or clients and customers. You want to call them by their chosen name and respect them by the correct pronouns that they've addressed themselves as, whether this is he, him, his, she, her, hers, or they, them, their. You want to be mindful of the questions you ask. Always make sure that you ask personal questions directly, face-to-face with the person in question. You want to avoid overly personal questions, and you never want to dispute a person's identified gender. You also want to make sure that you avoid anything that may come across as disrespectful or vulgar. So if it's not something that you would typically talk about in the workplace, it's best to keep in mind that you probably shouldn't be asking this person these questions. So here's some ways to be a little more inclusive in your workplace. Know your company's inclusion policies and always promote positivity and inclusion no matter where you are inside or outside of your workplace.
May I have your attention?
Become a resource for people of trans-identified
The library will close.
identifications. You want to promote the workspace inclusion policies as they are known, and make sure that you're not being a bystander to discrimination. If you see someone who is being called out of their pronouns, respectfully correct whoever is misusing their pronouns. If you see someone asking inappropriate questions, make sure you show the level of respect that the company has for those people and the level of respect that you have for those trans-identified people. By doing this, you will open yourself and your company to more opportunities, and you'll promote a more inclusive environment that is more welcoming to not only just your workers, but as well as your customers and clients. Thank you.